Welcome to this episode. Today, we're sharing one of those rare, heart-tugging stories that starts with innocent dreams, gets lost in years of unanswered questions, and finally finds its way back through the patient magic of science and love that refuses to fade. It all begins in the late 1970s, in a quiet seaside town called Coral Bay, along the Gulf Coast. Think soft white sands, gentle waves lapping at the shore, and folks who still leave their doors unlocked at night. There, a young man named Ethan James Harlan, everyone just called him James, is 20 years old. He's a talented carpenter, the kind with calloused hands that turn raw wood into beautiful things. Tall, steady, with a warm laugh and eyes that crinkle when he smiles. He helps his neighbors fix porches or build shelves without ever asking for much in return. His family is tight. Mom, Evelyn, sisters Laura and Grace, a bunch of cousins who feel more like brothers and sisters. James is the rock they all lean on. Not far down the road lives Sophia Marie Ellis, just 16, with a bright spirit and a smile that could brighten the cloudiest day. She's kind-hearted, loves reading poetry, and dreams of one day having a home filled with children's laughter. Her family, brother Ryan, sister Claire, and parents who run a small bakery lives in that same close community. The two families already know each other well because James's sister Laura is dating Sophia's brother Ryan. Barbecues, holiday gatherings, church picnics, the groups blend together naturally. When James and Sophia finally spend real time together at one of those family events, it's like a spark ignites. What starts as shy conversations turns into long walks on the beach, shared dreams under the stars. Friendship blooms fast into something deeper, young, hopeful love that feels timeless. They talk about building a life, simple but full of meaning. On a warm afternoon in July 1979, they stand in front of a local judge and exchange vows. James is 20, Sophia 16. They're young, yes, but certain. No fancy wedding, just promises made with full hearts. They rent a cozy little cottage near the water, plan to save for a bigger place someday. And most importantly, they have each other. Sophia starts dreaming aloud about becoming a mom. She buys a sweet little memory book with pages for first smiles, first words, first steps. James promises he'll provide, build whatever they need with his own hands. Their dream takes beautiful shape on February 12, 1980, when their daughter Lily Grace Harlan arrives, healthy, with big curious eyes and the softest cheeks. The early photos capture pure joy. Lily nestled in James's arms, Sophia looking down with wonder, tiny fingers reaching out. Sophia fills that memory book with care, every little milestone noted, every moment treasured. James is in almost every picture, beaming like the proudest dad on earth. But bigger possibilities whisper from farther away. By mid-1980, the growing city of Austin, in central Texas, is booming. New homes going up everywhere. Construction crews needing skilled carpenters like James who can earn good money, more than double what he makes back home. After many late-night talks, weighing the risks and the hopes, they decide to go for it. A fresh start could give them the stability they want for Lily. They load their things into their old blue pickup truck, buckle 8-month-old Lily into her car seat, and head west. The drive is long, full of songs on the radio and stops at roadside diners. They settle in a modest apartment in Round Rock, just north of Austin. James starts landing carpentry jobs right away. Sophia focuses on making their new place feel like home for Lily, arranging toys, hanging curtains, writing letters back to family. Those letters keep coming for a while, brimming with optimism. Sophia describes Lily pulling up on furniture, babbling mama, giggling at silly faces until she hiccups. In one envelope from September 1980, she includes photos of Lily standing proudly with her push toy, staring right at the camera with that trusting baby grin. Evelyn keeps the pictures in a special drawer, shows them to everyone, and the family smiles at how fast their little one is growing, even so far away. Then, the letters stop. No more envelopes. Phone calls to the apartment go unanswered, ring after ring. At first, everyone assumes it's just the busyness of settling in. New jobs, new routines, adjusting to being so far from home. But as weeks turn to months, and the holidays come without a word, worry settles in deep. Evelyn writes letters that come back undeliverable. She calls the apartment manager, no forwarding address. Dread replaces hope. By spring 1981, after months of silence, the families filed missing persons reports. James, Sophia, and baby Lily enter the databases. But they'd only been in Texas a short time. No local roots, no trouble with the law, no obvious enemies. Investigators have little to go on. Farther south, in a remote, thickly wooded area outside San Antonio, about 200 miles from Round Rock, something heartbreaking has already unfolded, but no one connects it yet. One odd detail surfaces early. Late in 1980 or early 1981, a woman calling herself Sister Grace phones Evelyn. She says James and Sophia joined a peaceful spiritual community that asks members to cut ties with old lives for a fresh spiritual path. She claims they're safe, happy, and don't want contact. As a kindness, she offers to return their blue pickup truck. Desperate for any sign, the family agrees. The truck arrives, eventually, dropped off anonymously. Then Sister Grace disappears, police noted, but without proof of wrongdoing. It's just a puzzling loose end. The truck's return only raises more questions. Where are James and Sophia? And most urgently, where is little Lily? Then, in the early weeks of 1981, part of the answer comes in the worst way. A hiker and his dog stumble into a dense patch of woods near a rural road outside San Antonio. The dog brings back something awful, a human bone. Authorities search and find two badly decomposed bodies close together, partially hidden by undergrowth. The warm, humid climate has sped up nature's work. Identification isn't possible by sight. The man shows signs of being restrained and suffering heavy blows. The woman shows evidence of being strangled. No weapons found. No personal items survive to give clues, no IDs, no jewelry. They appear young, late teens to early 20s. Investigators guess a couple, maybe travelers, but no missing persons reports from the San Antonio area match. James and Sophia's short time in Texas means no co-workers or landlords raise alarms. The case becomes a double homicide with no leads. Artists create sketches from the remains. Gentle drawings of what they might have looked like, distributed widely, but no calls come in. In time, with no breakthroughs, the remains are laid to rest in unmarked graves at a county cemetery for the unknown. The file cools, though not forgotten entirely. Back in Coral Bay, the families hold on to those last photos of Lily, clinging to the hope she's somewhere safe. They wonder about the caller. Was the community story real, or a cover? Police check into spiritual groups active in Texas then, but nothing solid emerges. As years pass, 1980s into 1990s, DNA science starts changing forensics. Families give samples when asked, hoping for matches someday. Early systems are limited, no hits come. The 1980s rolled into the 1990s, then the new millennium, and still the silence held. In Coral Bay, Evelyn aged with a quiet ache that never quite left her eyes. She kept Lily's baby pictures framed on the mantel, dusted them weekly, and whispered prayers for her granddaughter every night. Laura and Grace, now with families of their own, celebrated Lily's birthday each February 12th, lighting a candle, sharing stories of James's kindness and Sophia's gentle ways. Even as hope thinned to a thread, the families never stopped wondering, was the spiritual community story true? Had James and Sophia chosen a new life, or was something darker at play? The mysterious sister Grace lingered in their minds like a shadow. Police had followed the lead as far as they could back then, asking around about nomadic groups, communes, or religious sects traveling through Texas in the late 70s and early 80s. Some groups fit parts of the description: peaceful, transient, encouraging detachment from family ties. But no one could link any to violence or to James, Sophia, and Lily. The trail went cold. Meanwhile, in the world of forensics, a quiet revolution was brewing. DNA testing entered crime labs in the late 1980s and grew more powerful through the 1990s and 2000s. The families provided blood samples, cheek swabs, anything asked. They waited for a match that might name the remains in those unmarked graves or confirm Lily was safe somewhere. But early databases were small, mostly for convicted offenders. No connections surfaced. By 2012, advances in forensic anthropology and DNA extraction from old bones gave new hope. The county where the remains were found received funding to exhume several unidentified victims from decades-old cases. The goal: pull better DNA profiles, enter them into expanding national systems like CODIS, and check for familial links. A dedicated forensic anthropologist named Dr. Elena Ramirez led the effort. She worked carefully documenting soil layers, cataloging bones, sampling for DNA without contamination. The testing showed the two individuals weren't related by blood, no parent-child, no siblings. That ruled out some theories and pointed toward a personal relationship, perhaps romantic. High-quality profiles were generated and uploaded. Investigators watched for hits, but years passed with nothing. The real shift came after 2018, when the Golden State Killer case shattered decades of silence using forensic genetic genealogy. Suddenly, consumer DNA databases, Ancestry, 23andMe, and sites like GetMatch that allowed law enforcement uploads became powerful tools. Investigators could start from crime scene DNA, find distant cousins, build family trees backward, and follow the branches to possible identities. In late 2020, this double homicide case caught the attention of a non-profit group called Horizon Forensics, specialists in genetic genealogy for cold cases. A senior genealogist named Clara Mendoza, while browsing volunteer databases for unidentified remains, lagged it. A young couple found together in a remote spot. No local ties, no obvious motive. It felt like something genealogy could crack. With grant funding and coordination from the county medical examiner's office, the remains' DNA was sent for advanced whole genome sequencing, producing detailed SNP data far beyond standard profiles. The lab work took months, but once done, Clara uploaded the profiles to GetMatch under strict law enforcement guidelines. She began the slow, meticulous work, clustering DNA matches by shared center, mapping overlaps, tracing public records, census data, marriage certificates, birth announcements, old yearbooks. In under 2 weeks, a solid paternal line match pointed toward the Harlan family in the Gulf Coast area. Clara and her colleague, forensic genealogist Marcus Hale, reached out carefully to James's sister Laura. They asked gently, "Is there anyone in your family who's been missing since around 1980? Laura's voice broke immediately. "Yes, my brother James and his wife Sophia. They disappeared with their baby daughter." Within hours, Marcus pulled marriage records from 1979, confirming Sophia Marie Ellis as James's wife. DNA from the Ellis side soon matched the female profile. By early 2022, over 41 years after the remains were discovered, the unidentified couple had names: Ethan James Harlan and Sophia Marie Ellis Harlan. The news washed over the family in waves, grief crashing hard, mixed with a strange relief. They finally knew what happened to James and Sophia. But one detail changed everything. When Laura mentioned the baby, the genealogists froze. No child remains had been found at the scene. No infant bones, no matching missing child cases in any database. Lily Grace Harlan, last seen in those September 1980 photos pushing her toy walker, had vanished with her parents, but unlike them, she had never turned up deceased. In an instant, the case transformed from a closed double homicide to an active missing child investigation. Lily would be in her early 40s now. Was she alive? Had someone taken her after the tragedy? The question burned urgent. The state's Cold Case and Missing Persons Division stepped in, forming a task force. The original county sheriff's office, the Round Rock police from their last known address, Gulf Coast authorities from the family's hometown, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children (NCME). NCMEC's experts in long-term child cases brought age progression artists and database tools. First came the visuals. Using the handful of 1980 baby photos, Lily smiling at the camera, chubby hands on her walker, artists applied modern age progression software. They factored in genetics, James's strong jaw and warm eyes, Sophia's soft features and gentle smile, typical aging patterns. The result, a composite of a woman in her early 40s, dark hair, kind expression, approachable and strong. The image went out to law enforcement, media, social media campaigns in Texas and neighboring states. Next, targeted familial DNA searching. Relatives from both sides uploaded to public genealogy sites allowing opt-in searches. Investigators looked for Hyson Morgan matches: 1,500 centimeters for a parent-child link, 600 to 1,200 for close relatives combined across both families. Any profile showing adoption, foster care, or unknown origins before age 2 got flagged. They revisited old threads. The sister Grace Cole was re-examined. Surviving family recalled her calm voice, slight accent, careful phrasing. The returned truck suggested someone had access right after the disappearance, possibly the same person who removed Lily. Quiet inquiries went to former members of transient spiritual communities from that era, groups known for communal living, simple dress, vegetarian ways, rejecting materialism. Some remembered a Sister Grace figure, but no ties to crime surfaced. Timeline work tightened the window. Forensic experts refined time of death to late September or early October 1980 based on insect evidence, soil decomposition, and the humid climate that placed Lily's separation from her parents very close to the tragedy, likely days or hours after. The theory grew. Whoever harmed James and Sophia may have taken the infant, perhaps to hide her existence or place her informally. Adoption records from 1980 to 1983 in Texas and nearby states were combed, especially church or community placements that skipped formal channels. Parallel to official work, Clara and Marcus expanded their trees, triangulating matches, monitoring new uploads, excluding false leads daily. A woman in Colorado matched at 900 centimeters but traced to different parents. Another in Louisiana shared segments but had documented family in 1980. Each dead end stung, but they pressed on. Then, in mid-May 2022, a fresh GEDmatch upload lit up alerts. The profile, a woman in her early 40s in northern New Mexico. She shared over 1,800 centimeters with multiple Harlan relatives and 1,700 plus with Ellis side, classic parent-child range. Her tree showed adoption as an infant, raised by a kind minister and his wife in a small rural congregation. No biological family listed before age 2. It was too strong to be chance. Clara contacted the task force immediately. Detectives verified discreetly. The woman, now named Lily Harper, married, name 42, lived in a quiet town near Santa Fe. She worked at a local cafe, had 3 children, attended church regularly, lived a steady, faith-centered life. On May 18, 2022, what would have been James's 63rd birthday, 2 investigators visited the cafe during a slow afternoon. They waited for the lunch crowd to clear, then asked to speak privately. They started soft, showed the NCMEC age progression image, then the original baby photos. They walked her through the 42-year journey, the disappearance, the remains found in 1981, the cold years, the 2012 the genetic sequencing, the 2022 identification of James and Sophia, and the focused hunt for their missing daughter that led here. Lily listened, eyes wide, hands trembling. She had always known she was adopted. The minister and his wife had told her lovingly. Two kind women in simple white dresses and bare feet brought her to the church as a tiny baby, with a birth certificate and a short note said to be from her birth father, releasing her to a better life. They vanished after. The Harpers raised her with stories, songs, and unconditional love. She had no memories of Texas, no echoes of violence. She felt secure. DNA confirmed it that day. She was Lily Grace Harlan. With her permission, a Zoom call was set that afternoon. Over 20 biological relatives gathered from the Harlan and Ellis sides. When Lily appeared on screen, tears flowed instantly. Laura spoke first, voice cracking. "We've waited for you our whole lives." They held up faded photos, shared memories, James fixing things for anyone who asked. Sophia's poetry readings under the stars, how they celebrated Lily's birthdays every year with cake and candles. Even in absence. In July 2022, Lily traveled to the Gulf Coast for an in-person reunion. Hugs lasted minutes, albums opened, stories poured out. She grieved the parents she never knew, yet felt them in every shared trait, every laugh. She also carried deep gratitude for the adoptive parents who gave her a childhood full of warmth. The murders of James and Sophia remain unsolved. The task force pursues leads, especially around those transient communities, but no arrests yet. Tips are welcome. The July 2022 reunion in the Gulf Coast town didn't just bring Lily back to her biological family. It rewrote the ending of a story that had felt unfinished for over 4 decades. Lily returned to her quiet life near Santa Fe, New Mexico, but now she carried 2 worlds inside her, one woven from the gentle, faith-filled hands of Reverend Thomas Harper and his wife Margaret, who had cradled her as a newborn after 2 soft-spoken women in flowing white dresses and bare feet appeared at their little country church one rainy evening in late 1980. They placed the baby in Margaret's arms, handed over a crisped birth certificate. A short handwritten note said to be from the father relinquishing rights for her safety and a better path, and then slipped away into the night without another word. The Harpers never hid the truth from Lily, told her she was chosen, loved beyond measure, a gift from God delivered in a mysterious way. They raised her with morning prayers, evening hymns, backyard picnics, and the kind of steady affection that makes a child feel like the center of the universe. Lily grew up calling them mom and dad, never feeling like something was missing, only that her beginning had a special kind of miracle attached to it now. The other half of her heart belonged to the family she had just met, a family that had carried an invisible wound for 42 years, aunts who had kept her baby photos in locket necklaces and on bedside tables, cousins who, as children, had pretended to have a little cousin they'd one day meet, grandparents who marked her birthday with quiet rituals, lighting a single candle, saying her name in grace, holding space for the possibility she was still out there. When Evelyn, James's mother, learned Lily had been found, she sat down on her porch swing, looked out at the same Gulf waves she'd watched for decades, and cried tears she thought she'd run out of long ago. "It's like the Lord gave me one last birthday present," she said. Sadly, Evelyn passed away peacefully in her sleep just 15 months later, in October 2023, ever getting the chance to wrap her arms around her granddaughter in person one final time. That small, aching near-miss still brings a hush to Lily's voice when she speaks of it. "I wish I could have sat with her, held her hand and said thank you," Lily shares softly. "Thank you for never letting me go, even when you didn't know where I was." The reunion days in July were a beautiful blur of raw emotion. Lily stepped into rooms full of people who looked like living echoes of the parents she was only now meeting through photographs and stories. She saw James's strong jawline in her uncle's face, Sophia's gentle eyes in her aunt's smile. Hugs stretched long and wordless, as if trying to make up for every lost year in a single embrace. Old photo albums came out, pages turning slowly. Someone would pause on a picture and say, "This was the last one." Sophia sent Lily standing up all by herself, so proud. Lily listened through tears as relatives described her parents. James's easy laugh that could lighten any mood, how he'd drop his tools to help a neighbor rebuild a fence. Sophia's quiet poetry, the way she'd read aloud to James under the stars, her careful handwriting filling that little memory book with love notes about every new thing their baby did. Lily grieved deeply for the mom and dad she would never hug, never hear call her name, but in every shared story, every family resemblance, she felt them close, watching, perhaps smiling at the miracle of her return. At the same time, she felt overwhelming gratitude for the life the Harpers had given her. In quiet moments during the visit, she would step outside, look at the same kind of Gulf horizon her birth parents once knew, and think about Reverend Harper reading her bedtime Bible stories, teaching her to sing hymns, walking her down the aisle at her wedding. She had 2 mothers who loved her completely, one she had known every day of her life, one she was meeting through memories and faded Polaroids. That beautiful, sometimes painful duality became the foundation of everything that came next. Love, Lily realized, doesn't split when you discover more of it. It grows from that place of deep thankfulness and quiet grief. Lily chose to turn her story outward. Together with her biological family and the forensic genealogists who had helped solve the puzzle, Clara Mendoza and Marcus Hale, she helped establish the Harlan legacy fund in late 2022. It quickly evolved into a formal 501c3 nonprofit called Pathways to Answers PT, co-founded with Claire as a key advisor. The mission was clear and heartfelt: provide funding, technical support, and public awareness for genetic genealogy investigations into long-term, unidentified human remains and missing persons cases across the country, especially those where traditional leads had dried up decades ago. John and Jane Does lying in unmarked graves, families still waiting in the same limbo the Harlans and Ellises had endured. PTA uses the same tools that brought Lily home: high-resolution SNP sequencing, uploads to GEDmatch and other opt-in platforms, expert reverse family tree building, cross-referencing with public records like old newspapers, yearbooks, and cemetery logs. They partner with law enforcement, medical examiners, and organizations like NCMEC to prioritize solvable cases. The impact started small but grew fast. In 2023, with initial donations from the family, podcast listeners who heard Lily's story, and proceeds from early speaking engagements, PTA helped fund the genetic work that identified a 1984 unidentified woman from rural Georgia as Kathy Monroe, missing since 1983. In 2024, they supported the naming of a 1986 Jane Doe in Arizona as Maria Elena Torres. More followed: a 1981 John Doe in Oklahoma, a 1985 unidentified teen in Nevada. Each identification was celebrated quietly and name returned to a headstone. A family finally able to lay flowers and say goodbye. As of early 2026, Pathways to Answers has raised over 60% of its initial $150,000 goal and is actively assisting more than a dozen cases. Lily has become a steady, recognizable voice in the forensic genealogy and cold case community. In a 2023 interview on a national morning show, she spoke with calm honesty. "I always knew I was adopted, but I never imagined the story behind it would be this big. When they showed me those baby pictures next to the age-progressed image, it was like looking at two versions of myself, one who had no idea what was coming, and one who somehow made it through." In a 2024 podcast appearance, she addressed the deeper ache many families carry. Not knowing is a special kind of pain. Not knowing if your child is alive, or what happened to your sibling, or your parent. That uncertainty can haunt you every single day. Genetic genealogy is closing that door for more people every year. It's giving answers, and sometimes, like in my case, it's giving miracles. Lily co-authored a memoir in 2024 called Found by Grace: A Journey from Mystery to Reunion, written with journalist Sarah Bennett. The book is part personal story, part call to action. It describes the stunned silence in the cafe when detectives first approached her, the flood of tears on the Zoom call when 20 relatives appeared on screen, the in-person reunion where she finally touched the hands that once held her mother. She writes about forgiveness not toward any specific person, since the case remains open, but toward the circumstances that stole her parents. "I don't carry hate," she says in the pages. "I carry what was taken, but I choose to live in the light of what was returned to families. Double the love, and a chance to help others find their way home." Book proceeds go directly to PTA. The memoir has inspired thousands to upload their DNA to public databases with law enforcement, opt-in enabled, creating new matches for other cases. The murders of James and Sophia remain unsolved. The state's cold case unit continues to follow leads, particularly around transient spiritual or communal groups active in Texas during the late 1970s and early 1980s, groups known for simple living, distinctive dress, and encouraging members to leave past ties behind. Investigators have spoken with former participants, including one woman who acknowledged using the name Sister Grace in those years and confirmed returning the blue pickup truck. She denied any knowledge of or involvement in harm. No physical evidence or definitive witness has yet connected anyone to the crime scene. Lily stays hopeful but grounded. "I don't believe the people we've talked to are the ones who hurt my parents," she says. "I think they were living their beliefs. But someone, somewhere, knows more. I pray that one day compassion opens that door." Lily's story stands out in the world of cold cases because she was found alive, a rare, radiant outcome in a field where breakthroughs usually mean naming the departed. It also shines a light on the larger ongoing need. Thousands of unidentified adults and hundreds of children and infants still wait for names. Each one represents families in the same long silence the Harlans and Ellises knew. Today, Lily lives fully in the moment. She raises her 3 children and helps with her growing grandchildren, works mornings at the cozy cafe in town, sings in the church choir, and dedicates more and more time to advocacy. She speaks at forensic conferences, appears on true crime and hope-focused podcasts, and guides PTA's outreach. Her life feels grounded, joyful, purposeful, a living testament to resilience, faith, and the power of never giving up. What began as a young couple's hopeful drive west for a better future ended in tragedy no one could have foreseen. But through decades of patient love, breakthroughs in science, the quiet persistence of investigators and genealogists, and the unbreakable threads of family, biological, adoptive, and chosen, it became something far greater. a beacon of hope, a spark for change, and a reminder that even after more than 4 decades of silence, some stories can still find their way back home. Thank you for listening to Lily's journey. If it touched you, consider supporting Pathways to Answers. Donate if you can. Upload your DNA to GetMatch with law enforcement opt-in turned on, or simply share the message that no family should have to wait forever. Miracles still happen when we keep searching.